I see here a message from Sasha. Yes, but Sasha, would you comment what you said, and Alberto as well, to have some vocal reactions? Yeah?
Thank you, Raul, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. I just wanted to add that the cause and effect chain is a formal logic approach to the problem of complexity. I just wanted to add that in the context of neural networks, what could be a outcome or effect of in formal logical context is only the input for the next level of layers in neural networks. So I'm not sure that that way of interpretation, cause and effect chain, could be fully implemented in the context of complex systems. Sorry. So just wanted to check my perception of the problem.
Who wants to react on that?
No,
yes, please.
Yeah, it's Yuri speaking now. May I add something to your presentation? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah.
Please go ahead, Yuri.
Yeah. Okay. So that first, Ron has explained very carefully all the sort of problems and challenges. I would like to add only very few remarks. First, he explained that he's related to the networks. I am related in his slide 4 to the nonlinear dynamics, so I'm more from mathematics. It's first. And I understand that the challenge now, whoever is discussing this problem, is really how to apply these understandings to social sciences, so that the processes we face every day, in every country over all the world. And the point is, yes, it's a network, there are all these links, it's all that's understandable. But how to characterize these links? In mathematics, it's simple, it's a force and actions and all the fields and all that. But in social connection, this is something that we have to think about. This is one thing. And then what I think for us, for the World Academy, is that we would like to probably find essentials from that area, some case studies, but also what were pointed out by Raul. And this goes with the aim to reach society, mostly policymakers, but for policymakers, understanding is needed. They are not going to solve the models. They are not going to analyze that. But to understand and to change the mindset, to understand that the world is very complex, that we have to understand how these links are working, and that all these notions from this nonlinear dynamics, I also teach my students, for example, like that. Don't think these notions and take them over to social sciences, but you have to understand why this is in physics and what we have to learn from that, and whether we can see something around in our social surrounding, in the social environment, and that is something that I think that is quite important for the future. So thank you. I'm over.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. So I have hands raised. So
can I say something?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Very, very, very interesting and congratulations, Raul. I wonder if, as a contribution to your work, our academy could offer a data bank of the real butterfly effects that have been and will be documented as concrete example of butterfly effect. And second proposal, what about creating an e-book to give away for free in different languages, where the law of complexity are explained to kids and teenagers.
Okay. Yes, quite interesting. So the butterfly effect, I see if I may react, but please, the other colleagues have to react as well. So after that, I give the floor to Mila. But so the butterfly effects, we have to check the literature. We know the butterfly effect as a let's say a metaphor where they have happened or where they can happen. So I would so in first reaction, but it's not a binding reaction, that in the case of tipping points, that there in climate change. So, and there are a number. There's not only the greenhouse gases concentration, but there are much more. The oceans, etc. So there are many, several related to one perhaps, but that there butterfly effects can occur. So they have not taken place yet. But there we have to have some insiders, and insiders I mean scientific insiders, which we could address. I hope they will work that. I'm thinking of one name which should be reachable for us. It's Caldera at Berkeley or Stanford, I think. There is Jim Hansen, who is now retired from the NASA. He's a famous, excellent scientist in climate for 40 years, but now just retired, and remains in a statement that he will remain active and defending this absolute superb. That we have some input from their point in the way that you have described. That we say, good, the academy would try if the leadership does agree that to set up a database, as you have called it, but to set up a picture of butterfly effects or tipping point effect. So
great.
Well, okay, it's an idea to pursue, I would say, but comments of others. Your second point, and you even remember that, Alberto? You had the second point.
The second point is that I think, and maybe we could even be able to raise some money to create an e-book or a video for kids or teenagers to explain the law of complexity.
Okay, yeah.
Eventually it could be then adopted by elementary schools that want all over the world to have their younger generation to be grounded on what we know about reality.
But a fantastic idea. So it's a first reaction, a reaction from the stomach. It's not easy, but well, we should think about it. So now what I can announce is too strong, but perspective is that you and myself will bring the texts and the slides and text together of the previous workshop on networking and this one into one paper, let me call it that way, and bring it either in Erudito or in Cadmus.
Great.
So, but it's not for youngsters. It's more what we have said. Yeah.
Will have the help of somebody that is expert in popularizing science and made it available with the jargon and to the level of young people.
Yes.
May I also add something in this point? I think that Alberto is really right. And I was thinking about such kind of book in my own language, actually. Well, no time for that, but I'm still, it's something really in the air. So that I actually think it's a great idea, but it takes a lot of effort, and we certainly have to think about that, who is going to write and who is going to really to review and all that sort of thing. But no, let's think about it.
Okay, good. So, Alberto, I come back to you with the question, but let's first to have the announcement. Mira, please, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Raul, could you clarify something for me? I have several comments, but I need to know something before I make certain claims. You said at one point that the agents, discussing agent-based and multiple agent models, that they act in total ignorance of the whole system, right?
Well, perhaps not ignorance, but have to be discovered anyway. Yeah, please. Okay.
Okay.
What is your question?
Yeah, I needed to know because I just wrote down the quote that they act in total ignorance of the greater complex system, right?
Well, look, yeah, the word ignorance refers, as I understand it, refers to the classical approaches. So the physics, in case of the weather, does not approaches all the parameters and the links between the parameters. Yeah, some, of course, yes, and certainly that there cannot be contradictions between what complexity announces of discovery to what the physics is saying. So that be clear. Now, as I just repeat this, I do find that absolutely essential. That is that the complexity analysis as well as the network analysis, and in case of the internet, the structure of there, and the interactions. The interactions don't discovered by the power law or described by the power law. They do not change anything to the system, to the structure. So it is something that is beyond or above, or so. Yeah. So there's that picture with the four spheres. So you bring them down and try to understand what their interactions are. Is that an answer to your?
Yes. I just needed to clarify.
May I also add something, Mila? Well, usually the people who are explaining the agent-based modeling, they start with describing how the termites behave, building up the big nets and how well it is organized in it. So that this is a sort of very model situation for agent-based modeling. Maybe this is something that you could also look and come back. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Yuri. This is some of the things that I wanted to discuss, and I just needed to clarify and understand before I can go about it. And I think it's interesting that actually Sasha's comments about neural networks for me brought in here as well. And this is a comment to Gary, because Gary has read some of my writing, and it kind of makes sense that almost by default we start discussing systemic patterns, because in the last paper I wrote, I was driven to studying historical crises and empires in crises, and that's where thermodynamics were mentioned as well, Raul, thermodynamics of empires and their consumption of energy, that I had to identify systemic patterns, that we are forced, actually driven to discover huge, complex systemic aspects that had to be addressed in any policymaker, in any understanding of any system. So that was one of the things. Then another thing that I want to address is Alberto's idea about education. I think it is absolutely amazing, and that it needs to be done, even though we say it seems to us it's more difficult for us to tone this down for teenage readers than it is for us to discuss amongst ourselves. But there is a way to be done, and it should be done. I know some social studies teachers who are very keen on raising critical readers, and that's another thing Gary might remember I was writing about, not only what the education we need, but what kind of education, what kind of critical readers and interpreters are we going to be, in popularizing science. And in that sense, it also addresses Yuri's question about how do you access policymakers, because you have to create them in critical readers, and you also need to bring that to them in very personal terms, pretty much like teenagers, That was kind of a joke, I guess, but that's what they will remember. I mean, they operate in a different field. They operate in a different field, but they only have sort of single-minded focus they have. This is more of a broader introduction for you, but I wanted to mention one name that just blows me away, and it's a name of an incredible biologist that I used in my dissertation. He had the greatest privilege to spend time in Alexandria with his grandson. That is our very own Jakob von Uexküll, the founder of World Future Council, is the grandson of an incredible man by the exact same name, who is the founder of biosemiotics. Why am I mentioning this? If we are thinking, because I absolutely appreciate Raul's presentation, and especially the focus on relationships and environment and all of that. And then the next question is relying again onto what, or adding on to what Sasha said and what you discussed, is this. Well, how do they exactly interact? What are the connectives of these agents within the environment and in the sort of feedback loop? And the theory and the discussion of microenvironment by Jakob von Uexküll is a very, very useful one, because he talks about our perspectival or perception of reality creates an Umwelt, a microenvironment that is only readable to us and understandable to us according to what we are able to pick up on, the signs that the environment and mutually we send off to each other. That's how we create a certain perception of the world. So it is a subjective perceptual world in which an organism exists and acts as a subject. And again, there's a question I've been asking over and over again, and that's really a question that addresses both Yuri's comments and Alberto's comments and discussions with Gary in these workshops. I keep asking the same question and wondering, what kind of individual does it take to hold these complexities, paradoxes, to be able to have a range, a perceptual range, to behave in a certain way in the system, to improve the system, to understand the system, and to envision change. So it does go back to our individuality project, but it goes into policy making, social interaction, education, and all of the possible ways in which we do network and create social relationships, including the relationship to self. And that's something Alberto talked about before. How does one relate to the self and the others in the world? So I guess what I'm saying is that there's a wonderful work that we can also, there's always another scientist to bring in, I understand, and another discipline to bring in. But there's a work of Jakob von Uexküll, I think, that will be very useful to look back on, and we can look back on it with Jakob, our own fellow, his grandson, and the policies that he's so keen on bringing to create what Alberto was talking about, a certain database of best practices that you mentioned before in a previous seminar. And then that I think this project is doable. It has to have a range of accessing popular culture, as well as being able to keep up a long-term project for us to work on that will result in a report that Gary talked about, a database of best practices, an e-book, and all of these things. And another discipline for sure to mention is also the discipline of human ecology that has contributed a lot, in the discussion of relationships, environment, and the looping kind of feedback and the way we evolve. So these are just some meditative ideas, some of the things that I wanted to think about, because we have to discuss the nature of the signs or the neural connections on the actual signs that enable and mediate communication in relationships and a relationship between us as subjects and environment in the other way around.
Yeah. May I perhaps react on some of your things you have said? That is, so in this presentation here, there have been no mathematical formula. But in the different properties and approaches, there are quite, and the laws, the power law, I explained it a bit longer. So there are quantified analysis, mathematical, but quantified analysis within systems. So it means that your question at one point was, yeah, well, what is interacting? So in case, and so the more precise or less abstract than the internet, then you take the metabolism of a bacteria. There you have to do with definite chemical components. Yeah, it is well. You are with the 2 feet in reality of the metabolism of a bacteria. So some of the properties for example in the chaos theory. So different analysis, different mathematical descriptions, quantified. So what are the differences? How big should be the difference between the beginning conditions? Are they large or are they very small? So there is some, I think, so far as I can judge, there is in the process of getting knowledge, there is where there is more than let's say the descriptions given here today. So but one has to get down into some mathematical formalism, yeah. So to be sure. That's one comment. The second is about the brain or biology brain. So as far as I know, that the U.S. has, I presume the National Science Foundation, but I'm not sure about that the brain research should have a strong priority in the coming years, as has done the European Union. So the brain research is certainly complex, no doubt about it. Of course, there will be the necessity for microbiology and other processes, but as well as formalisms of the type we have been discussing. So, well, okay, for the references of von Upschool, I would like that you mail them to me, that we can bring them and put them on the internet as von Upschool or the son of von Upschool, for example. That would be useful for those who have participated, if possible. Yeah, thank you.
May I also add something to Miller? I think that this biosemiotics is really important, and Jakob von Upschool has done a lot of work. I know that in my country they are cooperating with von Upschool, and there are a couple of very good studies. The person, Kalevi Kullis, is the leading, the driving force behind it. And if you would like, I could send you somehow some kind of references from these works, because this biosemiotics is really quite interesting in this sense. That it's not like Raul has said, that this is a sort of chemistry or mathematics behind it, but that is something more. It's a perception. It is something it is very difficult to quantify, and this is something that it's interesting. It's very very useful also for all kinds of social systems. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Gary.
Absolutely. Sorry, Yuri, please send me that. And another thing that comes to mind is exactly that thing that is hard to quantify, of that ethereal aspect that imbues the whole system. It just makes me think of John Wheeler, the physicist, the theoretical physicist, who talked about that intentionality in the universe. So there's a lot to do and a lot of things to refine, but I think we are able to translate them in understandable, personable and personal terms to the youth in education. I agree with Alberto. I know it's a challenging task, but there's of course a lot of more of that kind of matter for us to chew on and to juice the orange that way. Thank you.
Okay.